Picture this. You're at a dinner party and someone launches into their third story about their recent promotion, their new car, and their amazing vacation. We've all been there, right? But here's the twist. While you're nodding politely, there's someone else at that table who genuinely couldn't care less about anyone's success, including yours. They're not jealous. They're not competitive. They're simply indifferent. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of success, bragging, and the people who navigate it in completely different ways. Let's start with the braggers. You know them well. They're the friends who turn every conversation into a highlight reel of their achievements. But why do people do this? Psychology gives us some surprising answers. Research shows that when people brag, their brains release dopamine, the same chemical associated with pleasure and reward. Essentially, talking about ourselves feels good, really good. In fact, studies from Harvard University found that talking about ourselves activates the same pleasure centers in our brains as food and money do. But here's where it gets interesting. Most braggers don't realize they're doing it. They think they're just sharing updates or being conversational. The gap between how we perceive our own behavior and how others perceive it is enormous. What feels like casual sharing to you might sound like insufferable boasting to someone else. This disconnect creates countless awkward social situations and damaged relationships. Now, let's talk about the other side of this equation. The people who genuinely don't care about your success. These aren't haters or jealous rivals. They're something different entirely. They're individuals who have disconnected from the conventional markers of success that society pushes on us. They've opted out of the comparison game completely. And honestly, there's something almost zen about their approach. These people exist in a different mental space. While most of us are caught in the endless cycle of measuring ourselves against others, they've simply stepped off the treadmill. They're not impressed by promotions, possessions, or prestige. Not because they're bitter, but because they've genuinely redefined what matters to them. They measure life by different metrics entirely. Maybe it's personal peace, creative fulfillment, or simply being present in each moment. But society has a hard time with people like this. We call them unmotivated, lazy, or lacking ambition. We struggle to understand someone who isn't playing the game everyone else is playing. It challenges our own choices and makes us question whether the race we're running actually has a finish line worth reaching. This brings us to a crucial question. Is it delusional to think completely outside the box? To reject conventional definitions of success and forge your own path. Society loves to label unconventional thinking as delusion, but history tells a different story. Every major innovation, every paradigm shift, every revolutionary idea was once considered crazy. Think about it. The Wright brothers were called delusional for believing humans could fly. People laughed at the idea of personal computers in every home. Streaming services were dismissed as a passing fad. The line between visionary thinking and delusion is incredibly thin, and it's usually only clear in hindsight. So, what's the difference? Delusion involves a disconnect from reality, while visionary thinking involves seeing possibilities within reality that others miss. Delusional thinking ignores facts and evidence. Visionary thinking incorporates facts, but imagines new applications and combinations. The key is staying grounded while allowing your imagination to soar. Here's where things get really fascinating. Some of the most successful people in history were told they were delusional. They were thinking so far outside the box that the box wasn't even visible anymore. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company for his unconventional ideas. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers. Were they delusional, or were they simply seeing something others couldn't? The real challenge is this. How do you distinguish between productive, unconventional thinking and actual delusion? How do you know if you're a visionary or just disconnected from reality? The answer lies in testing your ideas against the real world. Visionaries experiment, gather feedback, and adjust. Delusional thinkers ignore all evidence that contradicts their beliefs. Let's circle back to our original scenario. You've got the braggers, constantly seeking validation through sharing their achievements. You've got the indifferent ones who have opted out of conventional success metrics entirely. And you've got the unconventional thinkers who might be visionaries or might be delusional, depending on whether their ideas can survive contact with reality. The truth is, most of us exist somewhere in the middle of these extremes. We care about success, but also question its definitions. We share our achievements, but worry about bragging. We think outside the box, but fear being seen as unrealistic. This tension is actually healthy. It means we're engaged with these questions rather than blindly following one path. What's really worth examining is why we're so invested in others' opinions of our success anyway. The bragging impulse comes from insecurity and a need for external validation. The indifference some people show comes from finding internal validation instead. And the fear of being called delusional comes from caring too much about conventional approval. Here's a radical thought. What if success isn't something to brag about or be indifferent to? What if it's simply something to experience and learn from? What if thinking outside the box isn't delusional or visionary, but just another way of problem solving that works for some situations and not others? The people who seem happiest aren't the ones achieving the most by conventional standards. They're not the ones bragging, or the ones completely indifferent either. They're the ones who have figured out what actually matters to them and pursued it without needing constant validation or approval. They found their own definition of success, and they're living it quietly. So next time you're at that dinner party, listening to someone brag, or meeting someone who seems completely indifferent to achievement, or encountering someone with ideas that seem crazy, remember this. We're all navigating the same fundamental questions about meaning, purpose, and validation. We just have different strategies for dealing with the uncertainty. The braggers are seeking connection through achievement. The indifferent are seeking peace through detachment. The unconventional thinkers are seeking breakthrough through risk. None of these approaches is inherently wrong. They're just different paths through the same confusing landscape of modern life. Maybe the real wisdom is recognizing that there's no single right answer. Success means different things to different people. Some need to share it, some need to ignore it, and some need to completely redefine it. The key is being honest with yourself about what you actually want, not what you think you should want. That's the real challenge, and it's one we all face every single day.